Hey friends, I'm Patrick God and welcome to the Blazor WebAssembly Full Stack CRUD tutorial. Full stack means we are working with the Blazor WebAssembly client. We've got a web API for our server project, and additionally we will also add and use Entity Framework Core with a SQL Server database. This means you've got the complete stack the whole way from the client, all CRUD operations, to the web service with controllers, of course, the web API, and then we will put that data on or store the data in a SQL Server Express database. Everything is available for free, so don't worry about that. And well, what we're going to do is we will build a kinda superhero database. Maybe you know this already from my other videos. In the last video where I did this with .NET 5, we only covered the client part with mock data in the controller and the web API controller. Then I added another part 2 with Entity Framework, but now we've got everything covered in this single video, and that's why I also stated this full course, because with this little video here, and I think it will be 2 hours, you know more than me now. While I'm recording this, we will see that we've got everything covered. All the CRUD operations means create, read, update, and delete. We will use the HTTP request methods get, post, put, and delete. Of course, there are more, but with that, I think you get a great foundation for everything you wanna build with Blazor WebAssembly and a .NET 6 backend. Additionally, I wanna say thank you so much again for now even 9,000 subscribers. Means a lot to me. Thank you very, very much. This is great. We are on our way to 10K and then maybe 100K. Let's see. If you want to become part of this great community, then maybe like and subscribe. Thank you very much. And don't forget to click the bell icon, of course. Additionally, I really recommend the newsletter. I promise at most I send an email once a week. Now, the Blazor e-commerce course is out there. I'm telling you this because everyone who was subscribed to the newsletter got early access to this course. But of course, now after the Blazor e-commerce online course is before the next course. So I want to focus on a really big one that should help you getting a job in the Blazor and .NET 6 world. Got some students who already got a job thanks to my courses, but now I really focus on that stuff, meaning we will cover Blazor, we will cover .NET 6, also some other stuff like interview questions and project management methods like Scrum, so this agile stuff. Everything should be covered in this course. Now it's really in its early stages, but if you want to get insider information, let's say, and early access and more, then maybe it's a good idea to subscribe to that newsletter. If you can't wait to enroll in a course by me, then I really recommend the Blazor e-commerce course. Thank you everyone already for the great feedback. Really appreciate that and really happy about that you like this course that much. Was a lot of work, but now for the next course, maybe you want to subscribe to the newsletter. And the very last thing here, I got my, well, it's not the typical cup, let's say, but I got my coffee. So thank you so much for everyone supporting me, getting me some coffee. As you will see in this tutorial video, I had to pause it because my little boy was awake, and then I had to get back. So yeah, by the end it's getting a little maybe a little confusing. At least for me it was a bit confusing, but when it's edited I think you will get along just fine. Okay, so I think I talked enough. Thank you very much already for staying with me for such a long intro, and now enjoy the course. All right, here we are, Visual Studio 2022, and we create a complete new project, and this should be a Blazor WebAssembly application. We click next, and let's call that, for instance, Blazor Full Stack CRUD, because we really want to cover the full stack here. Hit next, and since we want to cover the full stack, we select ASP.NET Core hosted, meaning we get the 3 projects, the Blazor client, the web API server, and the shared project. As already mentioned in the introduction, we want to really implement the complete stack, even with the database in the end, a SQL Server database, using Entity Framework Core as object relational mapper. And there we are already. That's nice. So we've got the client project here, the server project, and also our shared project. Now in this tutorial, I really don't want to dive deep here. There are other videos made by me, of course, where I go a bit deeper and explain what these projects are, what you can see there. And of course, there are my online courses, by the way. maybe you want to check them out, then again, please have a look in the video description. But now let's focus on our CRUD implementations. The very first thing we need is, of course, a model or several models that we actually want to create, read, update, and delete. And since I want to build kind of a superhero database similar to the one I built with the .NET 5 version of this video here, I will change it a little bit. For instance, dealing also with the SQL Server and Entity Framework in this single video now, and not make a two-part series out of this. Yeah, let's add our models here, long story short. So we add a new class, and the first thing here now is our superhero. All right, there it is. Let's make this public. And let's also already add some properties here. The first one is the ID. And then we got some strings. So the first name, let's make this an empty string by default. And let me just copy this for also the last name and the hero name. So the last name. And then let's call this hero name. So for instance, Peter Parker would be then Spider-Man. And then I already want to add a relationship to a comic. So Peter Parker, Spider-Man, maybe you know this is part of the Marvel comics, and Bruce Wayne, Batman would be part of the Detective Comics or DC. So we add another thing here. We will add the comic type in a sec, but let's call this comic for now. And also we add the comic ID, and this is pretty neat when you want to seed data. And also we need that. We don't really need the comic ID for the actual relationship, but when we want to seed data again, then this comes in quite handy, and we actually really have to use the comic ID then here, but you will see this along the way. So let's keep going and add the comic class now. All right, also public. Again, we add an ID. Almost, it is an integer, that's true, but it's called ID. And now we add another string simply for the name, and by default again this is an empty string. All right, and now we already or also know the comic type here. So what we can also do is we can actually, yeah, let's make this nullable maybe. Let's see what happens here. I am prepared a little bit, but we'll see how this works out. Okay, so we've got our types, and now we have two options actually. We can start already with the client here, add some mock data there, or we start first with the server, and maybe this makes more sense now. Now again, if you're an absolute beginner here to Blazor, I've got other videos, I've got courses about that. And if you do not know what this whole structure here is, we can have a quick look at the example code and the application. But after that, I'd say we really focus on all the CRUD operations and build our stuff without talking too much about the example application. But for now, you see here the weather forecast controller. So we've got a web API controller here already that provides some data, and we have a get call here, and we will build something similar. One more thing I want to mention here is already that this is a so-called fed controller, meaning that we've got all our logic here. Typically, what you would build is a service on top of this using the so-called repository pattern here, meaning you would then inject with dependency injection the service here in the controller with the help of the constructor, similar to this thing here. There you can see the logger, which is injected in essence. And then the controller would be not that fed, rather, I wouldn't say stupid, but rather simple maybe, because then a get call would only consist of, well, calling the service and giving the service in essence the data or the request, and then the service would do something with that request and then returning the data to the controller and then back to the client. Either way, this is a weather forecast controller, so this is what we do here. And why am I telling you this? I don't want to build the the repository or the services here as well, because it takes more time and maybe you just want to focus on the CRUD operations. So let's do that. And now with that weather forecast controller, this is actually called here in the pages, right? So you see the fetch data example page, and down here you see the actual HTTP call, and this is already the read operation. In essence, this is how you get data from a web API with this call here, get from JSON async, and we include, or not include, we inject the HTTP client here. You see that, and this is in essence the same as I already told you in the controller and the services. It's using dependency injection here. We have the HTTP client, and you can do, in essence, the same within the client with the service. And this is what I want to do, using a bit better practices here. So not calling everything here in the code block, not running all the CRUD operations in the code block, but we will also use a service, a client service, if you want to call it that way, that then makes the web service calls. Okay, I hope you get the idea. So let's start by creating a controller and only implement the get calls, so the read operations for a list of heroes and a single hero. And then we will use, I'd say, already entity framework and move our data, the mock data, then to the database, so that we can then continue with all the other operations. So first, a controller. Here it's not, well, it is a class, but you can use add and then this menu entry here, controller. And what I want to do here now is we add an API controller, not MVC, an API controller that is empty. Best way to learn, in my opinion, and also, if you already know this, also the best way, because then you have full control, you can do whatever you want, and you do not have to remove some generated code, for instance. But of course, if you want, feel free to check these two options out, but I really like the empty one. And we call this thing, since you want to get and create and so on, SuperHeroes, then this should be the superhero controller. Real quick, again, check out the web API and EF core video here on my channel. Maybe I will display the info card, otherwise I already did that. We inherit from controller base. This is an MVC controller without view support. Without, it's important. If you need view support, then you would use controller here. But this is totally sufficient. We have the attribute API controller, and if you hover there, then you see it indicates data type, and all derived types are used to serve HTTP API responses. So we can really do all our CRUD operations here using get, post, put, and delete, for instance. And of course, there are also other HTTP methods we could use here. And the last important thing is the route, which is here with the generated code API / and then in brackets the controller, meaning we use the controller name here. So everything that comes before the controller term, and that'll be superhero. One more hint. Here it's just the controller. I don't know why Microsoft did this, but well, here it generates the code with API. Totally up to you. I think API makes sense here, so we just leave it at that. And now the first thing we need is some mock data. So we need mock heroes and mock comics. And for that, this is what I actually got prepared. So let me look this up real quick. So we've got a public static list of comics first. And this is a new, well, we call this comics, of course. So comics, and this is that maybe new list of comic, and we also initialize that. And of course we need the type here, or the reference. And since we are here on C#2, let's paste that here and add our global keyword now. That's nice. And now we also know the type in here. Isn't that great? Okay, so one comic should be, yep, ID1 is nice, and the name then would be Marvel. And now let's copy this and paste it here. And this thing now is called DC, for instance. And now we do the same for our heroes. We've got a list of SuperHeroes. Call this heroes maybe. Like that. Fix the ID, of course. And now we've got the first name, which is Peter. And let me put this in a new line. Yeah, I think that's better. So we've got Peter. Last name then is Parker. And the hero name, that's what I wanted, is Spider-Man. And just for these mock data lists, we use the comics 0. All right, that's nice. Okay, so this is our first hero, and now the second one would be again Bruce Wayne, and that'll be Batman, and this is the comic here. All right, so we've got our mock data already, and now we write already the calls. So for that, we say this is a public async task, and then as you can see here, it is suggesting, let me just finish this, get SuperHeroes. It's suggesting the return type iActionResult, and this would totally work. All right, but the thing is that if you want to use Swagger UI, for instance, if you don't know Swagger, this is a great tool for your API documentation, and you can already test your API with that, meaning you don't have to use any other REST client like Postman, for instance, although I like Postman and all the other tools like the extension for Visual Studio Code, for instance. But if you don't want to use that and just use Swagger, then what you have to do is, or what I would recommend here, is you specify the exact type, meaning don't use the interface iActionResult, you would use the implementation class in a sense, ActionResult, and then you really define what you want here, and this is a list of superheroes. And additionally, this is still not enough, you really have to specify the HTTP request method, that'll be HTTP GET, although it's not necessary for the web API or for the controller here, because if you call a method get superheroes, and now I know what's missing here, that would be the angle bracket. If it's called get and then anything else, then the convention says, okay, this is a get method, and the controller here knows what to do. As long as you only have one HTTP GET method here. If you have more, then you have to pay attention. Maybe you have different parameters, then it's okay, it works. But for Swagger, you definitely have to specify this, even if you only have one method. Similar to the weather forecast controller, what they did here is they just say this is an IEnumberable with weather forecast. You can also do that, but I think the better way is to really return an action result, because with that, you can also return the status code like 200 OK, and that's what we do here now. So with return OK heroes, I know that this is not asynchronous, but it will be when we use Entity Framework very soon. With that, we say we return status code 200, which means everything is fine. We could also return something like a bad request, for instance, is 400, or not found, which would be 404. Everyone knows that. So you see lots of possibilities here, but we just want to return our heroes. With that, we can already add another get method, and this one now would be for a single hero. So get single hero, for instance, with the ID now of that hero. We only return one single hero in that case. So not a list like that. Very important here is, I know that's already maybe pretty much, but well, we have to do it quick here. It's for YouTube, you know, quick and dirty stuff. If you need more and deep, more comprehensive stuff, please have a look at my courses. But again, stay with me, please. You will learn a lot in the next couple of minutes or hours. Let's see. Very important here, we've got an ID here, so we also have to specify the ID here as well, or to show you this first, it is an HTTP GET, and then we also have to add the route attribute, and then in quotation marks and the curly braces, we say, okay, this is our argument here we have to set, but you can also combine these two attributes, HTTP GET and route, and add it like that, and then you're also fine, right? And now let's say we want our hero, and this is not the hero's ID. We want to use find, or let's say first or default. Exactly, IntelliCode at its best, where the H for hero ID equals the given ID. And now if the hero is null, we could say, and there you have it, we return a not found, and say, sorry, no hero here. And otherwise, we return our hero, all right? And you can actually test this already, so let's start that. If I did not make any mistake here, but let's see. We start our application, build succeeded, nice, and there it is on my other screen. So this is our example application. You see it's making a call here, and now what you can also do is you can really access the data, at least for your get calls. Now let's say we want to get all our superheroes, see that? We get, well, all our heroes already. And if you want to get Spider-Man, for instance, we just add our ID, and there's Spider-Man. And with F12, or you open the developer tools here, with more tools, developer tools, or Control-Shift and I, and we go to the network tab, we see that as well. For now, we have to remove all our filters. Let me just run this again, and here you can see this is our hero. Comic ID is not set, but that's not important for now. And here are all our heroes, and you see it is in a great format. Everything works just fine. Okay, and now we want to see exactly that data. Let me add this filter now for XHR, meaning XML HTTP requests. We want to add this or see this now in our Blazor client application. So let's go back to Visual Studio. And for that, I would say we add a new page. So right click pages, add, and then really important, Razor component, not Razor page, it is a Razor component. And this will be a page. So let's first call this SuperHeroes maybe. And since this is a page, we can add the page directive here and give this thing a route, SuperHeroes, for instance. The title's great already, and we can also make use of the new page title components, and also set this to SuperHeroes. And to be able to access this, well, we could just enter SuperHeroes, for instance, or we add that to our navigation, and this would be here in the shared folder. We've got the nav menu, and this is a shared component, meaning this is then used in the actual page. I think it's in the main layout. Yep, there it is. You see the sidebar, and there is our nav menu component now. And here, let's just copy the last entry. Now let's say our href is SuperHeroes with people. If there's a better icon, please tell me that in the comments. And call this SuperHeroes. We save that. And just make sure we restart our application. All right, there we are, our SuperHeroes, and you see the SuperHeroes page. Great, and you see also the title of the tab changed as well. That's nice. Okay, so we've got our page already, and now I'm afraid we have to add some HTML. So let's add a table, and this table first has a header. Then we need a row, and then for the actual headers, we've got again the first name. And since I'm a lazy coder, I copy this, and that's a reason, a big reason for lots of errors, all that copy paste stuff. then also the comic, and one more for a button to edit or first show the actual hero. Okay, this is the row now. Now regarding the body, we need our heroes. So we need a way to access them, right? But let's write it anyways. T-body, all right. And now there would actually be a for each loop where we would access the heroes from our controller, from our web API. But before we can do that, we have now to write an HTTP call. Now again, we could do it like, or similar to the weather for, not the controller, to the fetch data page. That's the one. Here we're creating this call. But again, a better practice would be to add a service here. So we've got our SuperHeroes page, and instead of injecting the HTTP client, then we inject this new service then. And this service looks like that. We create a new folder here. So new folder, call this services. And then again, another folder. We call this SuperHeroService. And this thing now gets an interface. And we call this SuperHeroService, and also an implementation class, SuperHeroService, right? And this thing now implements the SuperHeroService. And to make this work, we also have to register this thing. And we do that here with builder services and then add scoped. Then in angle brackets, we say whenever someone wants to inject the SuperHeroService, we want to use the SuperHeroService implementation class. And this is the magic then of dependency injection. For instance, if you want to build another SuperHeroService, call it SuperHeroService 2, just do that, change the registration here, and then all of a sudden, when we inject the SuperHeroService in the superheroes page, lots of superheroes, I know, then you would get the SuperHeroService 2 implementation. And since we need this service, I think on other places as well, let me put that on top and use the global keyword here. And not sure if you really need that, because the other way, of course, is for the page at least, or the Razor components at least, is to add the using directive here. So Blazor full stack CRUD, client services, and then SuperHeroService. And now what we can do is we say inject SuperHeroService, SuperHeroService, and our page knows this thing. If we would not add it to the imports, you would have to use the complete namespace, right? So we really would have to write Blazor full stack CRUD, client services, and so on. I think you get the idea now. Okay, so we've registered and injected our SuperHeroService, but now we have to implement some logic, of course. So the first thing is the interface. There it is. And well, we also need the heroes and the comics. And with that, I see I forgot the comics, but let's add that. This is great. So we see how this application is built one step after another. But first, the list of superheroes. Do we have the type? No, we don't have the type. Let me add it here. Global using Blazor full stack CRUD shared. No, we should have. Yep, there it is. Great. Okay, so we've got our heroes, which is a property in essence. And then also the comics. There it was. All right. And then we need some methods. Again, the ones from the controller. So get superheroes and get single hero. And now let's already also add the get comics method, because we need that for our update or create operations because then we will create a form, which would be an edit form. And for that, of course, we would need the comics because we want to create a hero where we can then select from the list of comics. So let's say when we create a new hero, we want to say, is it a hero of the Marvel comics or the Detective Comics? So task get comics, not returning anything, because in this method we will set these comics here, and exactly the same happens with our get SuperHeroes method. All right, and the last thing for now, task superhero, that's correct, but that would be then get single hero with an ID. Okay, and now here we have to implement our interface. There is everything. If you don't know what I did, control period, and then the magic happens. You get the quick fix menu, or you use the light bulb, click on it, and then you can say implement the interface, and you get all that stuff, sometimes even more than you want, because I don't want these exceptions here. All right, okay. Now let's also initialize this as a new list of superheroes, and here a new list of comics. All right, and now already our calls. And for that, we have to add a constructor. Let's do that on top with CTOR, and we hit tab twice. And here now we inject the HTTP client. So again, short recap, the thing that is done here in essence in the page is now done in the service, and that's the HTTP client class. We call this HTTP, and again, control period, and then by default, you can choose create and assign field called HTTP. And I already configured actually Visual Studio to not use this. Instead, it should use an underscore for these private fields. But as soon as you update Visual Studio, this config is gone, and this is not nice. But anyways, for our little tutorial here, this still works. So we've got our HTTP client, and now we can use it, for instance, to get all our superheroes. We say var results, and then await HTTP. Saw that async keyword was automatically added when I typed await. That's nice. So HTTP, and then get from JSON async, and we need another reference here, system.net.http JSON. So let's add this one, and then we define the actual type we expect, and this is a list of superheroes like that. And then we need the routes, and again that'll be API and then SuperHeroes. And you can see that, to just double check here again, right? So API and then the controller name, doesn't matter if you use capital S and H here or just write it in lowercase, this works in any way. And after that, we just check if our result is not null. Then we say our heroes are the result. All right, so with that, we get our heroes. Okay, and now with that, we can finish our superheroes page, because we only need the get single hero and get comics implementations for then the edit form, which would be another page, but again, one step after another. So let's go back to our page here, and now we say add for each. There it is, for each hero in now SuperHeroService, and then heroes. All right, and for each hero we add a new row. What's the problem here? No, there is no problem. Okay, great. And now regarding the column, we say add, and then hero, and then the first name, for instance. Last name, hero name. And for the comic, we just display the name of the comic. So here it'll be the last name, then the hero name, and here now comic, and also the name. And then in the last column we will add a little button, but let's save that for later. And then that should be the HTML. Yes, this could be null, but I don't care here for now. More important is our code block now, because we have to initialize our heroes. So for instance, if I save this and restart the application, it is rebuilding. You see that cute icon here? Yeah, this is our table, but we get no data, right? So let's now make the call, and for that we use the lifecycle method on initialized async. There are 3 lifecycle methods. Let me show them to you with protected, override, and then async. There they are. So on initialized, this is the one that's used when this component, well, is initialized, then on parameter set, when the parameters are set, and then on after render, so when the component is rendered. And if you want to use this one, pay attention to the Boolean flag here. As you can see, first render, so there's really a first render, and if that's the first render only when this component finished rendering for the first time, you want to do some stuff, but it could be the case that it renders some more times, and then you would call whatever you want to call there lots of times. So pay attention to that. But in our case now, on initialized async is the one we need. And in here now, we write await super, also edit the async keyword, that's nice. So SuperHeroService, and then get SuperHeroes. All right, that should be it. Let's see, not rebuilding. Okay, let's also open the console here with the network tab. So let's restart it ourselves. And we have an error. Nice. Okay, what's the issue here? Okay, let's have a look at the network tab again. SuperHero and unheld error. Oh, all right. Interesting, interesting. URL is API SuperHeroes. That should actually work. Of course. Yeah, the double check did not really work, right? So we've got, actually it's called SuperHero. Why? Now that's interesting. SuperHero, let's try that again. But it's giving me a 200 OK. Okay. If you know why, please tell me that in the comments. Let's restart this. And now we got our heroes. Nice. Okay, this is what I actually wanted. And one more thing to make this a little bit prettier, maybe. We go to our page again and also add the class table. And maybe we have to really restart this again and again and again. Okay, now this looks better. This is what I actually wanted. Okay, so now we got our heroes. Call is also working, but it's really interesting that we get the 200 OK here. What happens if I don't know. I want to know this. SuperHeroes 1, 2, 3, for instance. Restart the app. SuperHeroes 1, 2, 3, 200 OK. All right. Okay, but this should not be part of this tutorial. So API SuperHero, make sure to use API SuperHero. Jesus Christ, okay. And now we see all our heroes. Okay, that's nice. What happens if I hit read? No, not working. Okay. I'm very confused by the new hot reload feature. Or not only the hot reload, but also the automatic restart should actually work when hot reload would not be enough. But somehow since the latest update it doesn't work, which is, let me show you, version 17.0.5 in my case. Okay. Anyways, let's continue with the single heroes, I'd say. For that matter, I want to add another page where we simply navigate to when we add our button here, and also when we add a create button, because in that case then all the fields are empty in the form. But if we hit the edit button, for instance, then we navigate to the other page, and every control has a value, of course, and then we can change this or even delete the hero. So for that we add another page. It's a razor component, and we call this hero razor. And this now gets 2 page parameters. Why is that? If I want to create a hero, I want to use the first parameter here, and if I want to edit one, we use this thing here, not parameter, the directive, so page directive, first page directive with the route hero, and the second one with hero, and then the parameter ID, which should be an integer. And then in the case we only got hero, this is the creation of a new hero, and in this case this is telling our page, okay, get a hero with this ID, or at least try to get it, and make sure to use the correct controller name. And then we are able to edit this guy. All right. We have to do some stuff, of course, to make this work. Again, we inject the SuperHeroService, so SuperHeroService with the interface SuperHeroService. All right. And then let's say we check if the ID is null, but first we need the parameter for that. So whenever you want to use a parameter like this, you need a parameter here in the code block, and use even the parameter attribute. And this would be then now a nullable integer called ID. Again, the case doesn't matter. You see this is here lowercase, here with a capital I works. So get set, and not public, it's public, so with a B. All right, so public int ID, and this is this thing here. Now we can check, for instance, if our ID is null, then we display a title like h3 creates a new superhero. Maybe also the page title, why not? All right, and otherwise we say we want to edit a specific hero. So maybe we then say edit, and then we need another field here in essence. We will call this thing hero, lowercase h in this case, hero, and then hero name. Okay, and we use that as well for the page title. And now our hero, which is a superhero, new superhero. All right, and let's also initialize the comic here because we need that. For a select box, we will add to our edit form in a minute. Okay, but with that, we at least got our title, right? Okay, now quick recap, because this is maybe a bit too fast, not sure about that, but there are actually some things we also have to implement, of course, to make this work. We've got our superheroes page, and now actually, since we now got our hero page, we can add our button here. So let's do that real quick. button. Class is button primary, for instance, like that. And now let's also give this an icon. So class would be OI pencil for edit, maybe, yeah, why not? And now, pretty important, of course, a function that should be called onClick. Now, since we also want to use a parameter here, we have to add a lambda expression here. So add onClick. So with the onClick event, we will write a method called showHero. Hero like that, and this would work again if you do not want to use a parameter. But if you want to use a parameter, and in our case this is the hero ID we want to give this method, then we have to do something else, and this looks like that. And here now we can say hero ID, and down here we write our method void show hero with the ID, and now we want to do something with that. And actually want to navigate the user to a new page. And to be able to navigate the user, we need the navigation manager. And this is stuff of Blazor. So we inject the navigation manager up here. Call this navigation manager. And now here we say navigation manager navigate to, and that would be hero with a ID. So hero and then ID. Okay, this should be it for now. Let's see. Our button is here, great. And let's edit Peter Parker, and we have no hero name, of course, not yet. Okay, but you see the ID here, right? So hero and then 1 and hero ID 2, perfect, this works. And now we have to get our single hero. So we've got the controller method already. So superhero controller, here we get the single hero. And now it's time to do this stuff. And this looks pretty similar in essence. So we've got our results with get from JSON async, but now it's just returning a superhero, and we need another ID here. Make sure to use superhero, not SuperHeroes. Don't know why you would do that, but some people, well, I don't know, do this. The ID, important, we have to add our async keyword, get, and now we return our result instead of setting a hero. Okay. Well, and in case this guy was not found, let's just throw a new exception, why not? So, hero not found, okay. So with that we get our single hero, and now let's add this method now to our hero page. Okay. And now let's use onParameter set. So protected, override, and then onParameter set async. And here now, first let's check if the ID is null. In this case, we would create a new hero. We do that in a sec, but here now we set our hero to await SuperHeroService get single hero with the ID. Okay. And we have an error here. Yeah, let's cast this to an integer, and then this should work. Restart. It is restarting. I go here, edit Spider-Man, edit Batman, and we see, show me the calls, there they are. Okay, great. So this works, kind of. Almost an hour because I talk so much. But with that, now we've got the read kind of covered. We need our edit form, of course, so maybe let's add this first. And then after we get our edit form, we move to the database. We move our mock data to the database and then complete the other operations. You see, this tutorial is a little bit longer, but well, you clicked the video and saw the time, so I'm still in the process here. So you know more than me, although you are from the future. Isn't that crazy? Not although, you know more than me because you are from the future. This is interesting. Okay, our edit form. If you don't know this is a built-in component of Blazor WebAssembly. And this edit form here is there, well, to create a form. And this edit form always needs a model. And what a coincidence, we already got our hero here, so this is the actual model. And also what this method wants is a method that should be called onSubmit. We also got something like onValidSubmit or inValidSubmit, but validation is not part of this video. If you want a video made by me covering edit forms with validation, for instance, please tell me that in the comments and then I will do my best to create this video. But for now, let's add a method called handleSubmit. And this method then will be called when we click the button that is part of the edit form. And handleSubmit will, in essence, it will call another async method. So let's also return async task here. But this will be done for creating and updating the hero, so let's not focus on that now. Now what we want is, actually, we want to see all the properties of our hero. So let's start with a little div maybe. So div and then label for the, let's also add for the first name, call this first name. And then this is simple, we use the input text built-in component. ID for our label is first name. Then we bind a value, that's important, right? So with that we can display the first name, and also if we change that, then we know that we want to change the first name of the hero. And we can also add a class to make this look a little bit prettier. And this would be form control, and this is part of Bootstrap 5. Just for your information, in case you didn't know. Okay, then we have two more. Last name as well here. And also the hero name, and also here the hero name, and of course here. And then we got the comics, and now you can see we need something else. We need another call for our comics, because what I want to do is I want to use a select box here, or the input select component of Blazor, where we can then choose which comic we want to use. But we can actually already implement this, although the comic list will be empty. Label is comic. Comic's correct. Add a new line here, and then we use again the input select. We bind the value, so this is quite similar, but this would then be the hero comic ID, and the class is form select, and in here now we add a for each. But this time for the comics, so var in SuperHeroService comics. All right, and here now option value is comic ID, and we want to display ID like that, and we want to display the names, so add comic name. Okay, and then the last thing is a button. So let's add a new line here. and then the submit button. Pretty important, type submit. So please enter type and then submit. And if you have other buttons here inside this form, make sure to type or to use type button. Otherwise, if you don't add the type, every button will submit this form. Got this a couple of times. I can never remember these errors and their solutions, so I have to learn the hard way. So button primary is okay, I guess. And here it depends if we want to create or update the hero. So let's also add or use a variable here or a field for the button text. String button text is first string empty, but now on initialization actually. So let's add this method. We need this anyways for the comics. So async task on initialized async. Yep. And then we set button text to if the ID is null, then we say save new hero, and otherwise we say update hero. Okay. And additionally, we can actually already call await SuperHeroService get comics. Okay, and now to make this complete, let's do that really. Here in our SuperHeroService, we call, can copy this actually, get comics. We expect a list of comics at the async keyword. We will add the comics routes. And now our comics are the results. And now real quick to the controller, and in here now we add a new method. This one here, add comics, expect a list of comics, call this get comics, and we return our almost. Yep, that's the one. All right, let's restart and test this. It's rebuilding. Go here. Okay, almost. So we've got the first. Oh yeah, I know why. I think because of the mock data, the comic ID is actually not set. So let's say comic ID here is 1, and here the comic ID is 2. Let's see. Still not working. Let's see. Restart. Now it's working. This is what I wanted. Nice. All right. Okay, so you see, we get the list of heroes. We can display a hero here, and we also see the right comic here in this select box. That's nice, right? Okay, but update hero does not work, of course. But with that, we got the read operations not completely full stack. Actually, we got it done in the controller with mock data. And now, after 1 hour, let's use Entity Framework. Okay, so we stop the app for that. Now, I assume you already got SQL Server Express installed. Don't really want to show you how to do that, but what you can do is simply Google for SQL Server Express. Just did that on the other screen, and there you see it. And here I guess it's the first hit, SQL Server downloads. And then you see SQL Server Express here. That's the free version. Can do or use that absolutely free for your applications. And additionally, what I like is the SQL Server Management Express Management Studio. That's the term I was looking for. So SQL Server Management Studio. Yeah, maybe I should Google it here. That's the thing I wanted to show you. Download SQL Server Management Studio, and with that you can, well, manage your SQL Server Express database. Of course, you can also do that with Visual Studio, but I like this thing, so maybe you want to do that too. So please, if you haven't already, download and install SQL Server Express and also maybe the SQL Server Management Studio. And then we can have a look at the database. And apart from that, we have to, well, do some entity framework magic now. For that, I already closed the app. Very first thing we need is entity framework itself. We could add a NuGet package here, or we could add a class where we then need the package, and Visual Studio would recognize that, install the package automatically. How you want to do that is up to you, but maybe let's just add it here already. So right click the server project and then manage NuGet packages. And then you go to browse, not installed. I'm always at installed and don't know why it doesn't find any packages. So what you need is Microsoft, and there it is already. So Microsoft Entity Framework Core, that's the first one. You see 350 million downloads. Wow. So install this one, please. All right, I accept. And since we want to use code first migrations, you also need Entity Framework Core Design. 176 million downloads, also not bad, not bad. And the last one is SQL Server. There it is. 182. For instance, just for your information, if you want to use SQLite, for instance, that's also the option, of course, and then you would need this package, all right? But we use SQL Server in this example. So install this one. And the last step then, now in the Package Manager console, you can open it with View, Other Windows, and then Package Manager console here. We have to install the Entity Framework tool. And this command I also always have to look up. Give me a sec. All right, so first, if you already have it installed, you can check that, of course. So with .NET-EF, you can see the actual .NET Entity Framework core tools that are installed. Let me try to open or make this a bit bigger here. So you see Entity Framework Core .NET CL, command line tools, not interface, CL command line tools. 6.0.1 is installed. Now, if you have that already, you're fine, you can use it, perfect. But if you have to install this, if you need to install this, then you do the following. So .NET tool and then install, and then -- global or -g would also work, and then .NET-EF. Now it's telling me I've already got it installed. So what I can do is I can uninstall it just for you guys. .NET tool uninstall. See, that was fast. And then I can install it again, and I get version 6.0.1. Okay, this is the latest one. And again, with .NET-EF, I can double check, similar to the SuperHero or Heroes controller, but now really double check, and it is installed. Okay, this is everything you need for Entity Framework, or to make it work. But now, to be able to use it, we need a data context or a DbContext, a database context. Now, the typical way to do this is you add a new folder in your server project, call it data, and in here now you add a new class. So there is some boilerplate code you need, but you can again have a look at the Web API and EF Core tutorial, or regarding Blazor, check out the info card, I've got the Blazor walking skeleton tutorial there, and there you also see all the information regarding using Blazor WebAssembly with a Web API, Entity Framework Core, and SQL Server Express. But in essence, we do that here as well, but maybe just a bit quicker. So maybe it's also interesting for you to check out the other video. Anyways, we add the DataContext class and inherit from DbContext. And now you will see it is using Microsoft Entity Framework Core. And at this place, if you haven't installed the NuGet package already, then Visual Studio, I guess it would, well, in my case, it was the case. In my case, it was the case. Great English. In my situation, there was the option to also install the Entity Framework Core NuGet package from here, but now we've got it already. And similar to the thing I did earlier, let me just add this here, make this global because we need this one definitely on another place. And go back now. All right, this works great. So we've got our DbContext. You see it here. The information is a bit bigger. It is an instance that represents a session with the database and can be used to query and save instances of your entities. DbContext is a combination of the unit of work and repository patterns. Now, what does this mean? Well, the next paragraph is a bit more specific. I guess being run instance, this includes both parallel, async queries and so on. Well, in essence, you can access your data from the database, right? And we will also inject the data context to do that. So lots of magic here. That is really awesome. But to make this work now, we need some configuration, still some boilerplate code. First thing is a constructor. So CTOR, data context, and this thing needs a DbContext. I can never remember this options. And then data context. This is called options, and very important, we need the base constructor here as well. And then since we want to seed data, or I want to seed data, I don't know about you, but I want to seed it here, we use the method protected override voids on model creating, and we add the model builder here, call this also model builder. And now regarding our data, we say model builder entity comic has data. We need the parenthesis here, has data. And we will add the data here in a second. And the same for the superhero entity. And now let's, here it is. So go back. These are our comics. Formatting does not work as always. All right, and now the superheroes. Okay, go back to the data context. There we are. And actually we don't need the comics or the comic property here. Comic ID is totally sufficient. Okay, I think this works. And the last thing, outside the model creating method, very important, the DB sets, the database sets. So whenever you want to see an entity represented as a table in your database, you have to add the database set. It is a property again with the type DB set, and then you add your entity here. And usually the name would just, you would just pluralize the name of your entity for the database table name. So SuperHeroes, this time it's correct. And here we also add the comics with the comic type. All right, and now two more things are left. First, the registration of the data context and assets. But before we can do that, we need a connection string, and we do that in the app settings. And the connection string looks like that. First, we open this new connection strings section at the default connection. And this thing now looks like this. We've got our server, which is, well, at least in my case, localhost // SQL Express, I think again, lowercase, uppercase, doesn't really matter. SQL Express, but this should work. And then the database name, this is totally up to you. Let's call this SuperHero DB, and then trusted connection is true, assuming you're using your local machine for all that stuff. Okay, so server localhost SQL Express database SuperHero-DB and trusted connection true. And now finally the last thing in the program CS, we register this thing with builder services and then add DbContext. That was already great. DataContext, and this thing gets options. And wait a sec, need a reference here. Options. Let's add the global keyword again. Why not? And in here now we say options use, this is important now, SQL Server. Now if you're using SQLite, for instance, this is different. You don't use SQL Server, you use SQLite. But both of them need the connection string, so builder configuration. And with SQLite, I think it's just the file. So you really have the path to your file then. And then get connection string default connection. All right. There's a parenthesis missing. Take a deep breath and let's try to run a migration. We do not start the app. We want to run a migration. So let's get some space here. And then important, you have to go to your server directory. So cd Blazor full stack and then server. And then we say .NET-EF, for instance. And with that, again, you see the commands, database, DbContext, and migrations. We only need 2 of them, which would be database and migrations. And again, with .NET-EF migrations, we add a migration, add initial, for instance, and fingers crossed. I hope this works. Okay. I am a bit skeptical, but let's double check. These are the comics. Well, let's see. Let's see if this works. So here you see now, this is important. We've got a new folder, migrations, with this initial thing here. Creating a table, comics, with an ID. And here, and a name. And the SuperHeroes table, also ID, and so on. Primary keys, foreign keys. Yeah, I think this should work. And now with .NET-EF database update, although we haven't created the database yet, we still use the update command. And now you will see, hopefully, that, yeah, it will do some stuff. And you see the insert commands here for our seeded data and also the create table command and so on. And now let's open SQL Server Management Studio. There it is. Takes some time. Need some patience here. Okay, we connect. Got some databases, I guess. Oh, yeah. Already got a SuperHero DB. Interesting. Okay, see walking skeleton, Blazor e-commerce, yeah, and so on. Some stuff from the tutorials, and we see our tables, and here we can access the actual data, and we see our 2 heroes. Isn't that nice? And also the comics. All right, so with that now we can get the data from the database, and this is done in the controller here. And you know what, let's remove this. We don't need this anymore, but we need a constructor. So we add a new constructor and now inject the data context here. Call it context. Add the field. Again, I configured this actually, but it is gone after the update. And now here we say our heroes are context, here SuperHeroes. This is our table, right? So with context period, and then SuperHeroes, we get our SuperHeroes, and we could also get the comics, for instance. So SuperHeroes it is to list async now, and these are our heroes, and we do the same with the comics. So our comics are the comics. And now regarding the single hero, we actually say context SuperHeroes. Now first or default async, but, and this is also done and explained a bit more deeply, I think, in my all relationships tutorial. Maybe you see the info card by now. We have to include the comics. So include hero comic. So with that, we only got the relationship to our comic and see the comic then in the result on the client. Otherwise, if you would not use the include function here, the comic would be null. So keep that in mind. Now, if our hero is null, we return the same thing, and then this should be it. Actually, we just return our hero and we're good to go. Let's try that. Save this and start the app. So you see this was lots of backend stuff, and actually I would like to continue with the backend because then this is done, and after that we can focus on the client. So, and we get an error, that's great. Okay, so what's going on here? This can be due to a cycle. Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is embarrassing. It took me a while, but this is the actual error here. I forgot the await, telling me that there are some cycle issues, but if you add the await, then there we are. These are the heroes from the database, and of course we have to fix it here as well. So just add the await, and then this error should not appear. And I restarted Visual Studio, and now also the automatic restarting feature works. You know, sometimes maybe you can relate, I don't know. But now we can edit this, we get the hero from our database. This is great, right? And also the comics and so on. And now, real quick, let's also implement the update, delete, and create functions. And for that, let's do that in the controller first, and then we're done with the backend stuff, and then we go to the Blazor client, and then we should be done real quick. So let's start with maybe create a hero, right? So let's copy some code here. And now we use the HTTP post method here. We don't need a route, so let's remove this one real quick. It is called create superhero. Parameter now is a superhero, and since this is a complex type, the controller or the web API wants this request object from the body or in the body. And one more thing we have to do here is we have to set the comic actually to null. Don't know about you, you can test it without doing that or without adding this line. But in my case, Entity Framework wanted to insert this new comic then into the database, and this did not work, of course, because the ID was already there in the database. So test it, that's up to you. Don't set the comic to null, maybe it works, but in my case I had to do this. Okay, and then actually we can remove all that here, because what we want to do is we want to say context SuperHeroes and then add, and this is not asynchronous, so we do not need the await keyword here. We add the hero, but then since we made a change to the database, we add await and then context save changes async. There it was already, save changes async, and then we are done. And actually let's return all our heroes then to see the change in the database, and then when we are implementing the client, we will navigate back to the list of all our superheroes. All right, so for that we add another method, And this is just a private async task, returning a list of superheroes, like that. And let's call this get DbHeroes for get database heroes. And this is pretty simple. Return await and then context superheroes. We include our comics and then turn this into a list. To list async. All right, and leave the S here. All right. That's it. And here now we call get DbHeroes. Okay, and this is our create superhero method. And now the update and the delete. Let's copy some code again. For the update, we use the post method, not post, put method. And again, we need a route here using the ID, so the actual hero we want to delete. This is again up to you how you want to do it. We can actually send a superhero object as a request to the server and then say, okay, from that object, we take the ID or we grab the ID and then try to find the hero from the database with this certain ID. Or another typical way is that we send the request object and also, so additionally, we send the ID and then take this ID to get the hero from the database and then overwrite all the properties. So how you want to do that, it's up to you, but let's do it in that way that we use the additional ID and first call this update superhero. And there's one thing, of course, copy paste errors. As I told you, we return a list of superheroes actually. All right, and the same now here. Yep, that's it. And now the ID. Okay. Now to get the hero, let's call this one now DbHero because we already got the parameter hero. So await context superheroes. Again, we include the comic. All right, and then first or default async where the hero ID is the given ID. If the DbHero is null, again, we return a not found. Say sorry, but no hero for you. And we add the other equal sign here. And after that, we just override all the properties manually. So our DbHero first name is the hero first name. And we do that for the last name as well as for the hero name. All right, and then the hero name. And the last one, the comic, and for that we will just use the comic ID. So hero comic ID, and after that again we save our changes asynchronously. And if you do that, remember to use the await keyword, otherwise you might run into some trouble. Okay, that's the update, I hope. And now the last thing, delete a superhero. Again, we copy this, paste it here. This time it's HTTP delete. We need again the route for the ID, but no request object. We just use the ID similar to the get method. Call this delete superhero. We return the complete list again. And we can actually leave that here. So we get the DbHero. And in the end, instead of overwriting everything, we just say context superheroes, remove DbHero. That's it. All right, and with that, the backend is done. And now I'd say let's move to the client. And first we cover the service. So in the interface, we need 3 new methods: create hero, update hero, and delete hero. No method is returning anything. Create hero, getting the actual request object. Then delete hero. Okay, IntelliCode, let's do that one first. And also update hero again with the actual request object. So SuperHero. All right, and we will use the ID then in, or add the ID in the method itself. We do not need it here already. So let's go to the implementation class and implement that interface. All right, create hero, delete hero, and the update is down there. Don't know why, but that's how it was generated for us. All right, first create hero. Now what we want to do here now is get the result by using now a different method, not get from JSON async. This time we're using the HTTP request method post, so we use post as JSON request. So await HTTP post as JSON request. The URL is API SuperHero and the hero. And then, as you can see here, the result is an HTTP response message. So we do not get the list of the superheroes directly, like here in the get from JSON, for instance. Here we get the comics, but we get an HTTP response message. And to get the actual result, then what we can do is we can say var response, for instance, is await result content and then read from JSON async. And here we also add the type. So we expect a list of superheroes. And in the end, we say heroes is now with a capital H, heroes is now the response. Okay, of course this could be null, but I don't care for now. Otherwise, you could of course check first if this is not null and then do all that magic. All right, next then the update. So down here, let's paste this. And we use put now. So put as JSON async with the hero, but now we also add the ID here. So API SuperHero / then hero ID. Add the async keyword, right? And the response is in essence the same. And again, we just paste this for the delete. And this is delete async. And we only add the ID here, API SuperHero, and then the ID, add the async keyword again. All right, and that's it. And please bear with me, or you know what, let's extract this and then we do not have duplicated code. So set heroes it is. Copy this now, paste it here, and also down here. All right, and these then should be the service methods for the client. And now let's go to our SuperHeroes page. We have our show hero method here. Although one more thing, I forgot one more thing. I told you that I want to navigate the user to the complete list actually. So let me first change that. This is not the result. We want to set the response. Wait a sec, set heroes. That's wrong. that's just wrong. This is a list. It is late. It is really late, almost 11 o'clock. You see, I really need that coffee. So we've got our heroes here. Well, it was actually... Oh, come on. No, that was correct. That's the result. We see the result here. Why is it? Ah, Jesus, copy-paste errors. We want to set the heroes to the response. That's correct. But here we want to call set heroes. Same here and same here. Okay. And now after that, I want to navigate the user to the SuperHeroes page again. So let's inject the navigation manager here as well. You can totally do this. So navigation manager, call this navigation manager. One thing we have to add here is this reference Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components, and we add the fields. Almost. That was the correct one. Add the underscore. And now in our setHeroes method, what we can do is we say navigation manager, navigate to, and then SuperHeroes. All right, and now let's go to the client, because here now what I want to do is we've got the show hero button. That's correct. And from there we go to our hero page. We see the submit for creating a hero and also updating a hero. And let's implement that now. So first, create a hero maybe. Here on parameters async, there's one thing we have to prepare. So the hero comic should be, let's just initialize that with the first one. So SuperHeroService comics 0 then, and let's just assume that there is one available. And after that, we also say the hero comic ID is hero comic ID. And now in the handle submit, we also have to check if the ID is null. Then we want to create this hero. So we say await SuperHeroService create hero. And otherwise, we say await SuperHeroService update hero. And here now we can already add our delete method. So async task delete hero would be await SuperHeroService delete hero with the hero ID. Update hero needs an object, of course. And now we've got the delete button missing. So let's add this one here. And this is not bottom, it's button. Okay. And here we say delete hero. Maybe use danger, so it's red. Okay, and now here on click we call delete hero, and this is of type button. That's important. Okay, this is delete, and then also create a hero. This is what I want to do here. So we add a new button. Class is button button primary, and on click, create new hero. And this is, of course, another method we have to implement. So let's do that real quick. Void create new hero. And in essence, we also only navigate the user here. So navigation manager, navigate to, and then just to hero, but you see without the ID. Okay. Still have an error here. Name on click. Yes, that's correct. Now it should work. No issues found. Great. So let's start the app and test this. So let's reload. All right, we've got our heroes, got our buttons now. Same here. What happens if we create a new hero? Okay, that's great. Okay, and now for Spider-Man, let's update, for instance, the name to Amazing Spider-Man. We get an error, of course. Cannot access a closed stream. Let's see, results at heroes. Response. Okay, we actually do not need this line here, and I think this is the issue. So let's reload. Oh, but it saved the change. Okay, now this worked. So when we go back now, Amazing Spider-Man, let's change that back. We remove Amazing, hit enter or return. Yep, this works now. Okay, great. So that works. Now let's create, for instance, Tony Stark, Iron Man is Marvel, Bruce Banner, Hulk is DC, of course. And there we are. These are our heroes. We can also see them in the database. That's nice. And now let's try to delete the Hulk. Same problem here. Yep. See, copy paste errors. Best ones. But it was deleted. And now the final test. It's really sad, but let's remove Iron Man just to test it. And this works. Okay, now this was a little bit harder than I expected, but let's push this now. Public repo, Blazor, full stack CRUD. Get the code if you want. And I hope you learned a lot, and we're done with that. So we're done, as I said it. Now you know everything regarding CRUD in a full stack Blazor WebAssembly application. We covered the client, we covered the backend with the database, and also in the middle the web API. So I hope you learned a lot. If so, I'd really appreciate it if you click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot. Don't forget the bell icon. And additionally, again, if you wanna see a course where we cover well, lots of stuff regarding Blazor and .NET 6, and also stuff you, well, should need and know if you want to land a job in that world, meaning interview questions, of course, but also agile methods like Scrum and other stuff, DevOps a little maybe, then I really recommend subscribing to the newsletter. I will do my best to make this course awesome again. And additionally, well, what can I say? I really don't spam you. I write an email at most once a week, and usually it's not even once a week, it's rather less. And last thing, thank you so much again for all the coffee. Really appreciate it, can really use it. And now I can only say thank you very much for watching. I hope I see you next time. Take care.